The August sun shines through the grimy windows of a factory in Ohio. Hot, humid air drifts across the concrete floor, and the old coffee machine in the corner seems to have been wheezing for half an hour. "Look, Frank's on the loose," someone in the shop exclaims. Slaps on the back, handshakes, shouts, "Hang in there, old man." The air smells of plastic sweat and cheap champagne. There is a cake on the table with a tiny figure of a man walking away with a wand. My name is Frank Morgan. I am 65. I've worked at this factory all my life, since I was 15. The same uniform, the same boots, the same entrance hall with a rusty turnstile. I am a welder because my father was a welder. Me and my grandfather. We were here for a long time. We believed in one thing: a pension would save us. Because if you work like an ox, you want to know that at least there will be soft grass at the finish line. But the soft grass turned out to be a trap. But I didn't know it at the time. After the farewell, I walked across the parking lot with a box in my hands, like in the movies, but without the soundtrack. My hands were trembling not from emotion, but from the fact that the box was heavy and I was not the same. Each item in it was a piece of my life, a mug, better well than talk. A photo with my son, who is now 34, and an old calendar with Tina Turner. I was not afraid of old age. I was preparing for it, honestly. My wife Linda started talking about a new stage of life 10 years ago, but she's as much a philosopher as I am a model. She went to California to look for herself. And I stayed here with robots and numbers. But I thought I could manage. Because I had a pension, I did. In the evening, I sat down on my shabby couch. My favorite spot was where the fabric sagged a little. I put my laptop on my knees and turned on the pension fund's online account. Password 11 to 1979. I know, stupid, but it's easier to remember. It loads. The page is white. Then a blink. Unfortunately, we are unable to display your account information. Please contact the administrator. What? Again. Same thing. Again and again the white page. At first I was angry. Then a cold moisture on my back. Navun and it was as if someone had opened a window to my memories. I didn't believe it. I couldn't. It was just a mistake. Maybe the system broke down. Tomorrow everything will be resolved. But it didn't work out tomorrow. And then the day after that too. And then I realized my pension was gone. It was gone completely. I remembered signing the papers. I remember how one manager told Mank, "Frank, worry, your old age will be as calm as a lake in Michigan." And head didn't even blink. He had such confidence in his voice that I believed him. The next day I went to the foundation's office. The office was empty. Only a closed door and a sign, under reconstruction. Inside it was empty. Even the lamps had been removed. The phones are silent. The post office returns letters. It was as if this place had never existed. I stood in front of the closed entrance, clutching a failed printout with a zero balance in my pocket. When I was sick to my stomach. Literally, I was sick, as if after a strong punch in the stomach. But I had no one to complain to, no son nearby, no wife. Only me and silence. And then, for the first time in my life, I thought, maybe we are all just numbers. And when the number disappears, we disappear too. I returned home. I turned on the light. The lamp was flickering. The smell of tea left on the stove. And the silence. Too quiet to be just evening. In this silence, my fear was born. A fear of being nothing. Fear of being deceived. Fear that old age is not freedom, but a chamber trap with no way out. And so I sat on my couch, staring at the ceiling, and repeated the same thing. This can't be. It can't be. This cannot be. But it was. And then I did not know that this was only the beginning. That there would be betrayal, discoveries, new faces, and the old truth ahead. Pension. It never existed. Have you ever held a document that looks like a pass to paradise? One that smells of fresh printing, and the numbers on it shine as if they were mocking. That was my pension statement for 2021. The amount in your account is $628,941.70. Expected monthly payment after retirement $3,642. That sounds good, right? Especially when you currently have zero in your account. Zero. Like the finger I would give them if I could see anyone from that damn fund. Let's go back a few years. I was still working then. Mona Linda was at home, not yet on her search for herself. And every Sunday we drank coffee from the vending machine and did the math. How we live after 65. I would show her that report, stroke the numbers with my finger and say, see, now you can dream of Florida. Fishing. Maybe we'll even get a camper. She laughed and answered, just don't forget the air conditioning. And I'm not sitting in the desert without it. Those numbers were like a warm blanket on a cold night. Thought it was mine? I thought it was earned. Protected, sustainable. Because what if the system breaks down? Will we be abandoned? Oh, we're not some bloggers on TikTok. We're the ones who pulled the damn locomotive. It was then, in the 20s, that he appeared. Jonathan Mills. Financial advisor. White shirt. He had white teeth and not a drop of conscience in his smile. He came to the plant every month and gathered people like me in a small meeting room that smelled of old coffee and dust. Your money is working for you. And if you want even more, you can transfer part of your pension into our new, flexible instrument. High returns, minimal risks, everything is insured. And it sounded nice, as if he was selling me happiness. And I thought at the time, well, why not? If money can work, let it work. Linda and I talked about it. She sighed and said, the main thing is that we have enough money for the pills. And we signed. Not all of it, just a part of it. But then, as things went on, I translated almost everything. I liked that every month I saw those pieces of paper with numbers. They were growing. They stood nice and straight like soldiers in formation. Every year plus 20,000, plus 30, plus another 10. And then bang, a pandemic. The market crashes. Recalculation. But still, the numbers were good. And then I said to myself, no, the system is holding up. Only those who are not in the know are panicking. I even told my son about this when he came at me, saying that he should invest himself. I told him, you believe in your cryptos. I believe in a piece of paper, because this paper has been feeding me for 35 years and will continue to do so. He just shrugged his shoulders. And now he doesn't call. Those beautiful numbers were actually a screen. And a soap bubble that was blown so big that it reached the sky. And now it burst, and I'm standing there empty-handed. And the worst part is that I agreed to it. A few weeks after my pension disappeared, I found an interesting article. A guy from Pennsylvania lost everything too. Same fund, same advisor, same scheme, only his was even bigger. Financial advisor Jonathan Mills disappeared after being accused of fraud with pension funds. Investigators say investors lost more than $40 million. I read the name 3 times, Mills. Jonathan. Our guy, the same one who came to our plant like a mesha. Maybe he also had a hollow, but we didn't notice. I was shaking. Not with rage, it was shame. Because I believed him. That I had let this glossy asshole enter my house through paper. Because of trust. Because of that nice number on paper. And now I have no number, no paper, no sleep. Because when you wake up at 3 in the morning thinking, what will I say if I get sick? You are no longer just a pensioner. You are an abandoned captain on a sinking boat, and the shore is far away. But I haven't given up yet. I decided to find him. Jonathan Mills. Because if I'm going to be penniless, I want to look him in the eye. Have you ever tried to withdraw money from an ATM and received only a receipt with the inscription, insufficient funds? I was standing in the branch, looking at that piece of paper, and there was only one question in my head. How much is not enough? Because I thought I had 600,000. But I had 0. I was freezing. As if someone had poured ice water on me in a 30-degree heat. I could neither speak nor breathe. My breathing was ragged like an old dog after a run. And my head was empty, as if all but one thought had been taken out of it. You don't exist. You are nobody. I went to the window, quietly, like a fool. with a smile because I thought it was just a mistake. The pension account, the no it should be. There's over 600 in there. The woman with glasses didn't even look up. There is no such account. I laughed. Seriously, I just laughed. What else could I do? It couldn't be true, could it? But she just repeating, "Sir, I can't help you. You can call the hotline." This word has always sounded like a joke. Because the only thing hot there is your heart, which is beating while you listen to. Stay on the line. Your call is very important to us. Okay, good. I'm still holding on. I still have my credit card. I still have some cash. I still have a fridge that's half full. But suddenly there was a smell in the air, the same smell that you get in an old refrigerator when the lights go out. The smell of rot. Invisible but very real. Linda was at home, in her pajamas. She was watching some reality show about divorce. I said, "We're fucked." She didn't react. She just changed the channel. I'm serious, Linda. My pension is gone. There's no money. And that's when she turned to me for the first time, slowly, like in a movie, and said, "Well, I told you, you can't believe everything." I was shaking. You said? So what? Why didn't you forbid it? Why didn't you stop it? As she shrugged her shoulders. You've always decided everything yourself, and I realized I was alone. I'm really alone in this shit, and then I did something stupid. My ex called. Or rather, my ex's friend. She works in finance. I told her everything. And she replied, "You've just been dumped. You are no one anymore. For the system, for the bank, for the state. You don't even weigh a penny, Frank, and that's what matters. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about the feeling. The feeling that you've been erased. That all your work, your taxes, the nights you went to work with a fever, all of it has become dust. And no one else remembers that you existed. We live in a country where, as long as you make a profit, you are a hero. As soon as you stop, you're a redundant. Pension. Yeah. Benefits. Only on paper. And when you die, they won't even change the statistics. Because you're not in the system anymore. I went to see Billy. He's a neighbor, a veteran. He once said that America is a country that takes care of its own. I told him everything. He listened and said, "You know what the worst thing is? It's not that we were abandoned. It's that we allowed it. We thought they would take care of us. We believed like children. And that's when I first thought, maybe the problem isn't with Mills. Maybe it was me, because I wanted to believe. I didn't read, I didn't check. I wanted peace, I wanted to dream. And I wanted a number on paper because it seemed more real to me than life. And you know what? It's not the end. I decided to go further. To face the truth. To gather the remnants of myself. Because if I no longer weighed even a penny, what do I have to lose? I may be a zero, but a zero that can press the restart button. The next morning, I got up, shaved, put on my old jacket, and went to see a lawyer. Because if I've been thrown out of the game, I at least want to know who else is playing. The next morning I woke up before dawn. It was as quiet as a cemetery on a Sunday. Linda was sleeping. The TV was mumbling something about a new diet for people with arthritis, and I felt that something had to change. Otherwise, it was either to the grave or to battle. I poured myself a cup of coffee, the strong kind that smells like oil, and sat down at my laptop. For the first time in several years, I opened a browser not for the weather or baseball news. I started Googling. Pension fund disappeared. Investment scheme went bankrupt. How to check the reliability of a pension broker. And there, at the very bottom of the page, between an advertisement for a fungus ointment and a video about some hero from Wyoming, I found a video. It shows a young guy wearing a baseball backwards, saying, "Friends, forget about banks. This is where the real pros put their money." TikTok is not lying. I stopped the video. Not because I didn't believe it, but because something in that sentence, TikTok doesn't lie, sounded like the final nail in the coffin of my Navy. But then I pressed play again. Because this was the video I had seen before. It was the last argument that convinced me to sign the documents. A year ago. Linda was flipping through the tape, and she found a video where the same guy said, "The Mills platform is a new level of security. Guarantees profit control." And I invested all of my grandmother's money there, and she's now driving a golf cart in Florida. Linda turned the phone back to Meg. "Look, he says his grandmother is in chocolate. And what did you do for your old age?" It was like an injection. I wanted to prove that I was not worse, that I could take care of myself, that I am a man who does not lag behind, and so I sat there, looking at the face of this TikToker, and realized I had invested my pension in a dream from my phone. In the words of an unfamiliar guy with flawless skin and a voice like a radio host. 2 hours later, I was sitting across from Melanie. She was in her 30s, I'm sure, with earrings that sparkled like Christmas. I told her everything I knew. I showed her the video. She watched and shook her head. "You're not the first, Anna, and certainly not the last. These guys from TikTok are not investors. They are actors. They get paid. For views, for clicks, for subscriptions. But when you invest money, they are already in Bali." I leaned back in my chair. I wanted to spit on the floor. At myself. At everything. What now? I asked. Now, we can sue. But there's not much chance. The company is registered in the Caymans. The people who run it have been out of the United States for a long time. But we'll try. "And you know what's most interesting?" she said. "You have a basis for a real lawsuit. Because that video is preserved. And if we prove that they mizzled you, that's another story." Misleading. This word did not convey what I was feeling, because this is not just a deception. It was a deception of myself. I believed in an easy solution, in a quick result, i.e. in the fact that the guy on the phone knows better where my money goes than the bank or the state. But the problem is not even in him, and not in the company. The problem is with us. The way we look for simple answers in a complex world. The way we want to trust because we are tired of thinking. That evening I called my son. Jason, he's young, an IT guy, lives in Seattle, rarely calls. "Dad, you really believe TikTok?" He laughed. Well, you said yourself that you have to keep up with the times," I replied. And then I realized that I had not only lost money, I had lost my face. In the eyes of my son, in the eyes of my wife, in the eyes of myself. But Melanie said one more thing. "I have clients who have suffered too. Maybe we should meet. Together we can do more than we can do alone." And I agreed. Because when you are alone, you are powerless. And when there are 5 or 6 of you, 5 or 6 frustrated fools like me, you are no longer just victims. You are witnesses. You are history. The story of how we entrusted our future to algorithms, and how we tried to take that future back. It was a little after 7 when I realized that Linda hadn't come home. At first, I thought maybe she was at her sister's, or maybe she had stayed at Cindy's after an evening of wine and tears. But the refrigerator was empty, her phone was off, and her bag was not on the chair in the hallway. It was a silent, all too expressive absence. I made myself a grilled egg, dry as sand. I sat down at the table where she had been folding travel brochures yesterday, and I felt that this whole house had become alien to me, as if I was not the owner here but a random guest. Without an invitation, in the afternoon I received a short message. "I need time. Don't call." That was it. 52 years of marriage are, and now, don't call. Like a text message from a cable operator. The tariff has been changed. I read it 20 times, and I didn't find anything in it that I could grab hold of. Not a short of warmth. No explanation. Only time. Hey, all my life I worked to make us feel good. I remember how Linda and I slept on a mattress in a rented trailer, eating beans from a can. How she laughed when I broke the bed, thinking I had assembled it correctly. We built our future by silently postponing every vacation, not yet. Every step after retirement. And now the pension has disappeared. And it disappeared. The TV, as always, worked in the background. Now it was a talk show with psychologists. A woman in elegant suit saying men over 60 often do not understand that the loss of financial stability is like an earthquake for women. She no longer feels supported. And I looked at her and wanted to scream. What about me? I don't feel support either. I failed too. And then it hit Meg I was alone. Without money, without a plan, without her. And this, alone, was worse than I had imagined. Because before, loneliness was a room where it was quiet. And now it's a life where no one is waiting for you. Someone knocked on the door. It was Mrs. Ruth, the neighbor who always smells like cinnamon and talks like a newscaster. Everything okay, Frank? She asked. Linda came by yesterday. She looked very. Well, I just nodded. Ruth shook my shoulder and left. And then I realized how it looks from the outside. My life is like a dollhouse from which the furniture has been taken out. Around midnight, I called Jason again. He picked up, but his voice was dry. Yes, Dad. She's gone. A pause. Thing it was expected, Dad. She was afraid of it all. And you shut down. I didn't shut down. I just didn't know how to tell her. And maybe I shouldn't have invested everything in that fund. I swallowed the insult. Because every word was true, and in every word there was a knife. The next morning I woke up to the fact that there was no smell of coffee in the house, and Linda was nowhere to be found, muttering to herself as she looked for her glasses. There was only the sun, which stung my eyes, and the silence, which squeezed my lungs. I took her old bathrobe, sat in her chair, and for the first time in a long time I cried. Not because I was weak, but because there was no one else to keep up the facade. Sometime in the afternoon, the phone rang. It was Melanie. I found 3 more people, all from the same wave. All of them lost their pensions. One of them wants to meet on Thursday. Can you make it? I didn't answer right away. I sat there, looking at my reflection on the screen and asking myself if I should. And then I said I can. Because staying alone is not an option. And fighting, even with defeat in my pocket, seems to be the only thing I have left. I woke up at 5, without an alarm clock, without Linda. No need to hurry anywhere. I just opened my eyes and realized that a new day had begun, even though I wasn't ready for it. The house was quiet, so quiet that you could hear the water bubbling in the kettle. I stood by the window looking out at the backyard, at the same trees that Linda and I used to decorate with garlands, and I felt some strange, alien warmth inside, as if someone else had appeared inside me. Someone who hadn't broken yet. I went to the hallway to get the mail. There were several bills, postcards, and one strange envelope with no return address. There was only one word on it. My name. In a pen, in a handwriting that seemed familiar to me. I opened it, and inside was a letter, handwritten, with the smell of old paper, and there were my thoughts, but not the present ones. No, it was me. But from the future. Hey, Frank, you don't know me, but I am you. The one who went through all this. The one who fell, scraping his hands, but got up. I know how much it hurts now, how frightening this new silence is, how the world you needed has dissolved. But I am here to tell you that you are not over yet. You still matter. You are still capable. Remember what you once told Jason. When you don't know what to do, get up and go forward, even if you can't see the way. It's time to remember your own words, my friend. Linda didn't leave for the money. She left because you disappeared first emotionally. Because you didn't talk anymore. Because you carried everything inside you like a suitcase without a handle, heavy and meaningless. But it's not too late. Leave the house. Look into the eyes of others. Become someone who is no longer afraid of losses. And, because such people become a support. And one more thing, write down how you feel. Every day. Not for others, for yourself. It will help. And if you ever get this letter, know this, I'm proud of what you've started. I read the letter 3 times. My heart was pounding like a teenager's after a first kiss. What was this? Was someone joking? Did Linda leave me? Or maybe Jason decided to shake me up somehow. But I knew that these words could not be someone else's. They sounded like things I never said out loud, but always thought in silence. It was as if someone who heard my thoughts at night sat down and wrote me a reply. And you know what the strangest thing was? I wanted to believe this letter. I wanted to become the Frank from the future that it described. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a small cafe in the center, opposite Melanie and two other new people, Brian and Tracy, all with the same bags under their eyes, all with pensions that had disappeared somewhere into the black hole of the system. Did you also feel like it was personal? Asked Tracy, twirling her spoon in her coffee. That the world was offended by you in particular? I thought I was just a loser, said Brian. But then I started looking for forums. There are thousands of people like us. We didn't agree on this, but at the end of the meeting we were already talking about a joint plan, for not a legal one yet. For now, it's emotional. We created a Google sheet where everyone could write what I lost and how I feel now. And it was strange, while I was writing my part there, I felt as if I was continuing the same letter in the morning. Only not by myself anymore. When I returned home, for the first time I did not hear silence. For some reason, music was playing in my head, the same music that Linda always turned on when she was mopping the floor. And I realized I'm not alone. I am still here. I'm still playing. I picked up the letter again and put it in the box with the instructions for the appliances. Do you know why? Because I thought, if tomorrow it becomes unbearable again, I will open it. And I will reread it. And I will remember that I am not finished yet. And then I sat down, opened my laptop, and wrote the first entry. Today I am alive again. Not happy, not sure, but alive. And that means I can still change something. Have you ever felt like you've been stupidly robbed, but in such a professional way that you also feel guilty? Melanie dropped this without looking up from her laptop screen. We were sitting in the library, not because we were such book lovers. It was just that there was free Wi-Fi, and no one turned off the lights at 9 o'clock. For 3 days, I had been flipping through news archives and forums where grandparents from all over the country wrote about the same things we were talking about. Plans that had government guarantees suddenly disappeared, banks announced restructuring, and companies announced temporary difficulties. And everywhere there was one phrase: we will do everything possible to protect your investment. The same phrase that was thrown into my phone the last time I called that damned Centurymark Holdings company. The dog, you know what I felt then. It was like being hugged and having a knife behind my back at the same time. It's all fake, Brian said, and threw a sheet of paper with the company's logo in front of us. Their papers are a copy of one of the pyramid schemes from the 2000th. The structure, the same, guaranteed interest, and the same directors, just with different names. Tracy crossed herself. Tell me you're kidding. I didn't just put my pension in there, I put my apartment in it too. And then it all came together. Centurymark Holdings turned out to be a rebranding of an old financial structure that had once been tried but never convicted. The company had gone through several mergers, changes of jurisdiction, and its investment advisors were the same crooks who had once sold gold coins for pensioners. It was a scheme, Melanie whispered. Us. My left temporalis muscle started throbbing, the way it always does when I'm holding back anger. I looked at the screen where it said, "Your investment is secure," and I felt something boiling in my chest. We were not just deceived. We were targeted. Because we are vulnerable. Because we do not understand crypto. Because we believe in the word guarantee. And because we are no longer young enough to run around in courts. We need to make this public, I said. We need to find a journalist, an investigator. Let them dig, Brian nodded. I know someone. He interviewed me once when I was still in the union. He hates the insurance companies even more than we do. Tracy suddenly spoke softly. My son thinks it's my fault. He says I was stupid to believe the ads. And, I was so afraid he was right. But now I realize he wasn't. If they were fooling us deliberately, we are not stupid. And then it became clear we are no longer just victims. We are witnesses, and maybe even a kind of insurgents. The next day, a journalist named Lenny agreed to meet with us. In the Brooklyn Pen Coffee shop, between sweet pies and strong coffees, we spilled the beans. "This is serious stuff," he said, rereading the documents. If what you say is true, it will entail not just one story, but a series of exposes. But will you be ready if the pressure starts?" "They are already putting pressure," I answered. Through bills, through silence on the phone, through empty refrigerators." Before we left, Lenny said, "I'll start digging. But, Frank, be careful. If this really is a conspiracy, you're not just pensioners now. You're a threat to them." And at that moment I realized that our problems had just turned into a war. Invisible, dirty, without fronts, but real. I woke up in the middle of the night. It's strange, but when you are so afraid of something, the night seems longer than the day. Perhaps it's because at night all your fears grow like mushrooms after rain. You know that tomorrow will be a crucial day, but you can't turn your head off. Yesterday, Lenny and I spoke at a conference. The first major media exposure, and now everything was decided. He was publishing his article about the financial conspiracy in which we were victims, and several major publications had confirmed his information. The problem was that the pressure was on. And with each keystroke, it became heavier. We started receiving a lot of letters. Some with threats, others with support. What I really needed was to just decide that I would act. I started to feel like even my new life was already going off the rails. Melanie also received several calls. They made direct threats. They were not shy. "We will find you if you don't stop this." And these words did not leave my mind for a long time. "How long can you hold out?" Brian asked when we got together. "As long as you want," I replied. "If we give it up, nothing will change. Everything will go back to the way it was." It was the only way we could find determination in this situation. We could not stop. Now it was not only about us, but also about people who have no voice, about those who cannot fight because of their fears or disabilities. But then, while we were planning our next steps, I realized one thing. This path could lead to serious consequences. I suddenly realized that every step we take will bring even more pressure. Should we go all the way? All those old life hacks about truth against the system. Tracy began, rubbing her forehead. What a nice phrase. But when you're threatened with having your children taken away because you told the truth, it's not so easy. We sat there silently considering what to do. Everyone was convinced that we had to go all the way, but everyone knew that it would not be safe. And then Lenny received an email. The subject line, "Forget the article." Just one line. "Your article will not be published. If you distribute it, goodbye." The sender was anonymous, but I could already feel who it could be. I had to act quickly. Lenny had a plan in mind, and we decided that we had to reach out to people. We had to get to the point where this monster of financial fraud was publicly exposed, even if we had to use every media outlet we had. "What do we do now?" Melanie asked when we got back together. "If they're all targeting us now." I looked at everyone and realized that we couldn't back down. It wasn't just a matter of money. It was a matter of dignity. And maybe I was no longer thinking about how much longer I could hold on, but about how I could leave this world behind. And then I did something I didn't expect from myself. I started my phone again and wrote a post on my account. Someone should definitely be held accountable for these pension abuses. We are on the verge of change. We have started to expose the financial conspiracy, and we will not stop. The next day, the world changed. More people learned about us. Then news started coming from other cities where people said they were facing the same problems. Reviews filled social media. But on the other hand, there was also their response. The pressure was growing. We had no illusion that they would leave us alone. We had to prepare ourselves for the fact that each new step could be not just public, but deadly. And when we gathered the next day to decide what to do next, I didn't know if I had the strength anymore. But I asked myself one thing. If we give up now, these people will win. They will snatch everything we can keep from us. And then everything became clear. I had to go all the way, without fear, and maybe not alone, but together. But what if the pressure is greater than we thought? What if we lose everything again next time? Are we ready? Looking like a winner and being one are different things. I was sitting in a coffee shop with Melanie, opening my laptop, on which we had just seen new articles about our case. They wrote that we had won, that it was a great victory against the financial conspiracy. You could see the celebratory headlines, how everything we did mattered. But something inside of me broke out in an impulse, something heavy and irresistible. We won, but we lost more than we gained, and it wasn't about money anymore. We fought so hard to show them that they had cheated us, that our pensions were empty promises. Melanie said, sipping her coffee. She was tired. We got the truth, I answered, but I wasn't sure. The feeling somehow did not correspond to the words. The truth had become a heavy burden again. We were free, but none of this seemed to matter anymore. We had no pension. We had no hope for the future. What was once the guarantee of a peaceful life has now become our torment. Over the past few months, we have experienced everything. Threats, refusal of assistance, lack of support. But even when we won our case in court, it turned out that a new disappointment awaited us. The government, like the financial companies, had no intention of restoring our pensions. All that remained was the word, free. But we realized that we had to pay for it with our stability, our savings, our last hopes. Melanie closed her eyes and took a deep breath. I never thought this would happen. Though we defended our dignity, and now, look at us. With nothing. And then I realized that victory is not something that will change everything. It won't change what we lost in the course of this struggle. All these years, we thought that the system could change, that if we stood up and told the truth, we would change something for the better. But the system hasn't changed. It remained the same. Maybe we won some small moral victory, but it didn't change reality. It was all pointless. Tracy muttered. They took our money anyway. All those promises from the governments, those who guarantees, in the end, what did they give us? I remained silent. You could say that we had at least won a public victory. But who would see that now? Instead of gratitude, there were the same complaints over and over again. Public exposure. And the question that remained unanswered: how to live on. We stood on the edge of a precipice where victory had a bitter aftertaste. What we once held as savings has now turned to dust. The guaranteed income we counted on has become nothing but an illusion. I remembered how, in my youth, I dreamed of a peaceful old age, year after year, just peace. And now, this struggle. I still couldn't let go of the thought that all this could have been avoided if I had paid more attention to what was going on around me. How are we going to live now? Melanie asked. We have nothing left. I looked at her, realizing that for her it was an even greater tragedy. She was still young, she could have had a different life, but here we were all the same, with nothing. And now our pension was not just a myth. It was a symbol of how the system destroys those who are least able to protect themselves. I felt a chill in my chest. All my determination, all the excitement I had felt just a few months ago had simply disappeared. Instead, there was emptiness. Maybe I have to say this. I began. But victory won't make us rich. It won't bring back what we've lost. And that was the most bitter realization. We were free, but free with nothing. Now we had nothing left but to fight to survive. But then one question arose: what next? Will we have anything left after this battle, or will it all end here? We sat in the old bar we usually visited after work. After everything that had happened, it was difficult to find familiar places. They seemed to have lost their essence. I couldn't shake the feeling that even this place was an illusion, just like our retirement. Melanie got up, went to the bar, and ordered another coffee. I sat there, staring at the empty cups. Something in all this had become real. You know, I always thought that retirement was something that would give you peace in your old age, she said, turning back. It turned out to be just a fantasy. A fantasy, and I really like that word. Well, we finally understood. What we had been promised for years did not come true. My pension was just a digital image on paper. Letters on a sheet of paper that seemed to promise me a good, peaceful life in my old age. I saw those numbers as they appeared on the screen of the banking app, but now they were empty. We're left with nothing, I repeated like an animal that had survived an attack. And it didn't bother me anymore. Years of fighting the system, years of trying to maintain financial stability, and here we are on the brink of collapse, on the very edge. Everything we thought about retirement, about our stability, turned out to be a lie. An entire generation of people was doomed to poverty. And instead of help from the state, we got something they called a deferral. Perhaps it was a mocking deferral before the real catastrophic collapse. I could no longer trust these systems. What we considered our financial support had now become a ghost. And it wasn't just my opinion, it was a reality that even Melanie now recognized. I don't know how to explain it. Everything I was counting on didn't happen, she said, her gaze growing deeper. All those hopes that everything would be fine when I stopped working. They don't matter anymore. We felt like travelers in a maze. We knew where we were, but we couldn't find the way out. Millions of people like us sincerely believed that retirement would provide them with a peaceful existence. However, the reality was completely different. And now we have to change everything we knew, I said, trying to see some kind of perspective. Retirement is no longer that promise. It was a really difficult conversation that left a bitter aftertaste. We had been such a victim of the system like many other people, but now we no longer had any illusions. Melanie sighed softly and looked at me. Now we have to adapt to the new reality. Have you realized that pension is just an illusion? You can't just sit there and wait. It will not come, as they said. And then it became clear that the pension we had been promised for decades was just a vain hope. The real struggle begins now. And it will be a completely different struggle. I could have stopped, given up everything, said that it didn't matter anymore, that there was no hope. But something in me held back this thought. After all, our struggle did have a result. We did not give up. We fought even if it was a fight against an illusion. Now we had to start a completely new path, without support, without guarantees, but with experience. Melanie put her hand on mine. We have to be together in this. And even if everything seems lost now, there's one thing we can't forget. We still have each other. She smiled, and I felt again that I had support from at least one person, because we were facing a new reality, difficult, complicated, but real. At that moment, I realized that life cannot be just a dream. If it is a dream, it has long since become a nightmare. And so we had to accept this reality, but we had the strength to make a new beginning. How will we live on without what we believed in so strongly? What lies ahead, and will we really be able to return to stability again? And we sat in a dark corner of the coffee shop, both of us with exhausted faces, with hardly any sense of where hope ended and acceptance began. When the last words were spoken, I felt my heart clench. All those years of trying, all those promises we heard on TV made no sense. Melanie sat across from me, her eyes clear but unhappy. She was holding a cup of coffee in her hands, but her hand was shaking, and it couldn't have been just from the cold. "So what now?" she said, looking around the half-empty room. But was it really everything? What if the pension is a trap? This question hung in the air, and it was hard for me to find an answer. And here, at the very edge, the true picture appeared before us. The very peace we had been looking for so long was not a gift. It was a trap. The system that had promised us protection was in fact draining us of everything, leaving us with only illusions. I thought about all the people who had worked for years, saving money in the hope of a beautiful old age. And now we have learned the truth. The pension we were waiting for was not a financial aid. It was a trap. We became part of it without even realizing it. Each of us had a picture in our minds of a happy aging, intimate dreams of times without worries, when we could enjoy the fruits of our labor. But then we realized that the pension we were offered was just a mirage. A few years when we thought we had everything under control and our finances were secure, turned out to be just part of a game where we were always on the losing side. Melanie sighed heavily. We worked our whole lives to provide for ourselves in our old age, she said, her voice bitter, and now that we're here on this road, all we could count on is a drop in the bucket. It's nothing more than an illusion. It deceived us. And this was not just a confession. It was a bitter realization of how the system we had supported for so long had become our enemy. We were left alone in this world where even the greatest support was just a fake-it. Melanie was deep in thought, and I knew she was wondering how we had gotten into this trap. What were we supposed to do? How could we get back to the normal life that the pension promised us? Before we realized it was an illusion, we were forced to make a choice. Would we allow ourselves to stay trapped, or would we look for a new path? We need to change everything, I said, realizing that I had no other choice. We need to give ourselves a chance for a new beginning. And so we decided that we would have to rebuild everything. In this world where pensions were nothing more than a trap, where our security was a lie, we couldn't stay in the same old reality. We couldn't. Melanie looked at me with determination in her eyes. This was her goal, not to allow herself to be trapped. It was a choice, and even if it sounded scary, we knew that this was the only way we could find a new purpose, a new opportunity. I'm ready for this, she said. There are no options, but there is a path we can take together, and that was the beginning of a new path. A path without illusions, without promises, without peace of mind. And now that we stood on the threshold of a new beginning, many questions awaited us. Was it possible to change everything for the better? Could we find something that would truly bring us satisfaction? Or is pensions really a trap? Or is it just a system that needs to be improved? But even if we didn't know the answer to these questions, one thing was certain: we couldn't stay put. To survive this struggle for financial independence without succumbing to the trap that was once called a pension. And so the question remains, maybe it really was a trap. Or maybe we just haven't found a way out of it yet.